Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone. Please accept my humble obeisances. All praise to Srila Prabhupada. We'll begin by chanting the prayers. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadavaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitansha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gautashe Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vanchakalpatarurvyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Welcome everyone to our discussion on chapter 5 of Bhagavad-gita, Karma Yoga, Action in Krishna Consciousness. We have covered up to verses 12. So in those verses, we discussed about Arjuna's question, whether he should work or renounce, and Krishna's answer that for him and for people in general, Karma Yoga is better than Sankhya Yoga or renunciation of work. We discussed this thoroughly yesterday. And then Krishna explained to Arjuna higher levels of Nishkam Karma Yoga. A question then comes in the mind of Arjuna and to anyone who wants to know about this truth, that if I am not supposed to own the results of my work, my hard labor, then why should I work at all? And Krishna says, that's for your purification, Arjuna. You should work because you have been given the body and mind to engage in certain kind of duties. So you engage in those duties with detachment. And then from philosophical point of view, a question arises, action leads to reaction. How is that Krishna conscious action does not lead to a reaction? So Krishna then, to help understand that concept, explains to us about doership, the mentality of I being the doer. I am doing certain action. So that mentality is now going to be explained by Krishna in the next 4 verses, verses 13, 14, 15, and 16. And then from verses 17 to 29, Krishna will talk about liberation, being aware that Super Soul or Paramatma is the orchestrator of everything that happens. So we'll begin that section. Before, let's chant the Mangalacharan for the specific book. Namostute Vyasa Vishala Buddhe Pullar Vindayata Patra Netre Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraikapanaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Gitamrita Duhe Namaha. 3 doers. The first doer explained is Jivatma, 5.13. The second is Prakriti, 5.14. And the third is Paramatma, 5.15. So we'll look at the shlokas first, then go to the discussion section of it. Chant the verses. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayan na kartritvam na karmani lokasya shrijati prabho na karma phala samyogam swabhavastru pravartate. Nadatte kasyachit papam na chaiva sukritam vipuhu Ajnanenavritam jnanam tena muhyanti chantavaha. Jnanena tu tad ajnanam yesham nashitam atmanah tesham adityavach jnanam prakashati tatparam. So we will do 5.13 now. 5.13. Sarva karmani manasa sanyasyaste sukham vashi navadvare pure dehi naiva kurvanna karayam. When the embodied living being controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. So about the living entity or Jiva, what is explained here? That the living entity neither works nor causes the work to be done. Very similar to what we studied already in 3.27. Prakrite kriyamanani gune karmani sarvasha ahankar vimutatma kartaham iti manyate. So the living entity does not work, neither the living entity causes the work to be done. What is written by Srila Prabhupada in the purport? Let's look at that. Okay. Dhananjay Prabhu, would you like to read? Yes, just a second. I have to allow the participants to unmute themselves. Okay. Yes, now you can unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna. City of 9 gates. The embodied soul lives in the city of 9 gates. The activities of the body or the figurative city of the body are conducted automatically by its particular modes of nature. The soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond these conditions if he so desires. Owing only the forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and therefore suffers. By Krishna consciousness, he can revive his real position and thus come out of his embodiment. Therefore, when one takes to Krishna consciousness, one at once becomes completely aloof from bodily activities. Bhagavad-gita 5.13 purport.
Yes. So the soul, although subjecting himself to the conditions of the body, can be beyond those conditions if he so desires. Owing only to forgetfulness of his superior nature, he identifies with the material body and thus suffers. So it's given to us to understand that the body can be compared to a city. A person living in a city never thinks himself or herself responsible for everything that happens in the city, right? Similarly, here it is explained, though we are living in the body, we should think as if this body is a city, and there's so many things happening within this body, but it's not really me who should be concerned with all of that. That will go on by itself, naturally. And in this consciousness, then a person endeavors, not that a person stops working, a person endeavors, but with the understanding that the result will come not only because of my endeavors or my efforts, but also the result depends on higher powers, powers way beyond me. I may not really understand how those powers work, but they work and they give me the result. Next verse. Na kartritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhuhu na karma phala samyogam svabhavastu pravartate. So here it is said that svabhavastu pravartate. The word svabhava means nature. Whose nature? My nature. Which nature? That which I have been carrying with me since time immemorial. Where is that nature stored? It is stored in the element called pradhana. Pradhana. What is pradhana? Pradhana is the aggregate mixture of all the material elements that compose myself, which means my 5 working senses, my 5 knowledge acquiring senses, 5 sense objects, 5 experiences, sense experiences, and then which means the 5 elements, and then mind, intelligence, false ego. You put all that together, that is called pradhan. Okay. Now that is stored in the pradhan, and it's going on since time immemorial. That is called swabhava or nature. And that forces one to act in all different possible ways. That forces one to act. Okay. This nature is material nature, not spiritual nature. So let's look at this verse translation, 5.14. Na kartitva na karmani. Here the word na comes 3 times, which means the living entity, the spirit soul, the pure spirit soul is not responsible. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. The 3 modes do that. Swabhava means that. Okay, today I'll call upon names and then ask them to read. Antara Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Okay, yes.
The living entity, as will be explained in the 7th chapter, is one of the energies or natures of the Supreme Lord, but is distinct from matter, which is another nature called inferior of the Lord. Somehow, the superior nature, the living entity, has been in contact with material nature since time immemorial. The temporary body or material dwelling place which he obtained is the cause of varieties of activities and their resultant reaction. Living in such a conditional atmosphere, one suffers the result of the activities of the body by identifying himself in ignorance with the body. It is ignorance acquired from time immemorial that is the cause of bodily suffering and body. He becomes free from the reactions as well. As long as he is in the city of the body, he appears to be the master of it, but actually he is neither its proprietor nor controller of its action and reaction. He is simply in the midst of the material ocean, struggling for existence. The waves of the ocean are tossing him, and he has no control over them. His best solution is to get out of the water by transcendental Krishna consciousness. That alone will save him from all turmoil.
Yes, thank you. So here it says the material nature is the cause for whatever actions we perform. And is the material nature working independently? No, we know that the material nature is controlled by the super soul. So drawing the line between the dots, one may say, I am not responsible as per verse 5.13 and 5.14. Material nature is responsible. And the one who is controlling the material nature is Paramatma. So at the end, the conclusion is super soul or Paramatma is responsible for everything that I do, whether it is good, whether it is bad. So the super soul should take the responsibility, the onus of it. And then why should I suffer for the reactions of my work? I should not suffer. So that misconception may arise in the mind of anyone who is trying to comprehend here the subject matter of doership. So Krishna, in order to clarify such doubts, he speaks the next verse where he says that God does not cause your suffering or also your enjoyment. God does not cause. So what causes? We will later on do an analysis of that. The verse is, Na datte kashchit papam na chaiva sukritam vibhu ajnanena vritam jnanam tena muhyanti jantavaha. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. So Krishna makes it very clear. The Supreme Lord does not assume anyone's sinful or pious activities, though he controls. Then what is the cause of sinful activities? Because of the ignorance, ajnana. The living entity, the pure soul, is covered by avidya shakti, the energy of the Lord which causes ignorance. And because of that, the living entity engages in different activities. That is explained here. So we'll read this purport. It's very important. Let me see who is available. Okay, Yashad Prabhu. Can you please read the purport? Not available. Okay. Madhavi Priyam Mataji, Manjari Mataji. Would you like to read the purport? Not there. Kapil Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, sure. Translation. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. Purport. The Sanskrit word Vibhu means the Supreme Lord who is full of unlimited knowledge, riches, strength, fame, beauty, and renunciation. Can you please? He is always satisfied in himself, undisturbed by sinful or pious activities. He does not create a particular situation for any living entity, but the living entity bewildered by ignorance, desire to be put into certain condition of life, and thereby his chain of action and reaction begins. A living entity is by superior nature full of knowledge. Nevertheless, he is prone to be influenced by ignorance due to his limited power. The Lord is omnipotent, but the living entity is not. The Lord is Vibhu or omniscient, but the living entity is Anu or atomic. Because he is living soul, he has the capacity to desire by his free will. Such a desire is fulfilled only by the omnipotent Lord. And so, when the living entity is bewildered in his desires, the Lord allows him to fulfill those desires, but the Lord is never responsible for actions and reactions of the particular situation which may be desired. Being in a bewildered condition, therefore, the embodied soul, it's identified himself with the circumstantial material body and becomes subjected to the temporary misery and happiness of life. The Lord is the constant companion of the living entity as a Paramatma or the super soul, and therefore he can understand the desire of an individual soul. As one can smell the flavor of a flower by being near it. Desire is a subtle form of conditioning for living entity. The Lord fulfills his desire as he deserves. Man proposes, God disposes. The individual is not therefore omnipotent in fulfilling his desires. The Lord, however, can fulfill all desires, and the Lord, being neutral to everyone, does not interfere with the desire of a minute independent living entity. However, when one desires Krishna, the Lord takes special care and encourages one to desire in such a way that one can attain to him and be eternal happy. The Vedic hymns therefore chant, declare, 𝗪𝗶𝗹𝗹 sadhu karma करयति तं यम एवयोर्लोकाभे तोनिस्थिते ऐसा तु एव साधु कर्म karyati yam adhonishti. The Lord engages the living entity in a pious activity so that he may be elevated. The Lord engages him in an impious activities so that he may go to hell. Kaushatuki Upanishad. Should I read the slokas?
Yes.
Ajno jatu anishayam atmana sukha dukkhayo ishvara pariretu gachet sarvagam vesha abdham evacha. The living entity is completely dependent in his distress and the happiness. By the will of Supreme, one can go to heaven or hell, as a cloud is driven by the air. Therefore, the embodied soul, by his immoral desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. Consequently, although he is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord, and in thus entrapped by the nescience. And under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. The Vedanta Sutra 2.1.34 has also confirmed this. Vashimai nirgrahe ya nigrahe na sapikva tat hi drashyati. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, though he appears to.
Okay, thank you. So here Srila Prabhupada is giving a detailed explanation about Lord's role and living entity's role. He says very clearly that the Supreme Lord, sitting very close to the living entity, can smell the desires of the living entity, just like one smells the flavor of a flower by being near to the flower. One doesn't have to even touch the flower to one's nose. One can be at some distance and still smell the fragrance of the flower. Likewise, the Paramatma, the Super Soul, smells the desires of the living entity and then makes the arrangement for the living entity to fulfill those desires. I have already explained this before, but still if devotees have confusion on this subject matter, they can clarify now. So basically, this is what the three do: the soul, the super soul, and the Prakriti. The soul desires, the super soul sanctions, and the material nature executes. Okay, because the soul can only desire and not do anything else. That's why it is not given the complete doership. But it is held accountable for all the kinds of desires, good desires, bad desires, any kind. I have explained this before with examples. Let's say a child wants a toy. So what kind of toy the child will get will be desired by the child. Of course, the father should have that much budget, and the father should sanction it. However, after the child gets the toy, whether the child is happy with the toy or is not happy with the toy, breaks the toy and then cries, or throws the toy and spoils it, that is child's freedom to act the way he or she likes to act. And that will cause the suffering or happiness of the child. So in that sense, the child is the doer, but not the ultimate doer, the one giving the sanction. That is the super soul. And the material nature is one who executes or who makes the arrangement. So when one understands this, so far now in Bhagavad-gita, a reader of Bhagavad-gita should have understood these things, that first of all, based on chapter 2, I am not the material body, I am spirit soul. Now someone may think, okay, I am spirit soul and I control my body. I am the controller, I am the enjoyer, I am the owner of this body. Then that is also explain here not to be wrong, right? I am not the controller of this body. The controller of this body is material nature, the three modes of material nature. They make the body function the way it is functioning. And then beyond the three modes of material nature is the super soul, Paramatma, who controls the material nature. So these three things must be clear so far, our studying Bhagavad-gita. Let's go to the next verse, which is verse number 16. Jnanena tu tat ajnanam yesham nashitamatmanaha tesham adityavachjnanam prakashyati tatparam. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. Which knowledge? This knowledge, the knowledge that we just discussed. If one understands it clearly, thoroughly, then one will become enlightened soul. A big obstacle on the path of a spiritualist is when one goes through these statements of scriptures, one may start blaming the Supreme Lord for one's misery or suffering. That Krishna or Paramatma has put me in this situation, that in my life I have to go through such hard times. And in this way, instead of going closer to the Supreme Lord, who is very kind and merciful, one starts going away from the Supreme Lord. That's how so many people become atheistic in nature, agnostic in nature, that we don't believe in God because God doesn't seem to be a kind person. He seems to be a very cruel person. However, as one begins to understand that Krishna or Paramatma here are completely neutral, they are very merciful, they are not at all partial, they just do the job of helping us fulfill our own desires, and because of that we either suffer or enjoy, then a person begins to appreciate Paramatma, the super soul, more and more, and then begins to move closer to the super soul because of having developed appreciation for the super soul. So this is explained here in the purport. We'll not read through this purport. Let's go to the next verse, verse number 17. With that begins a new section, which is liberation through meditation on super soul. You meditate on super soul how? One is not able to see the super soul. So how do I meditate on super soul? We meditate on the qualities of super soul. And here, which quality do we come to know about? We come to know about the impartial nature of super soul. The super soul is impartial. And being convinced of this idea is something which is a deep realization. It is not superficial. Without we being conscious or without we being noticing it, actually we do complain many times to God for many things that happen in our life. We may not vocalize it. We may not speak it in front of others. We may not even speak it to, the deity form of Krishna, the Lord whomever we worships. But in our mind, in the internal dialogue that's going on, the dialogue only which you hear and no one hears, we do sometimes question the merciful nature of the Supreme Lord. And how do you question that merciful nature? By asking questions which are founded on the understanding or on the idea that God is not kind. Like, let's say you hear the news of some person meeting a very, ill treatment. Then immediately a thought may come, why did this happen with this person? Why it should have happened with this person? This person seems to be a very good person. Why? What's wrong? There is something wrong in the administration of the universe. And the person who is administering it doesn't know how to give just judgment. There's something wrong about it. So that is indirectly questioning the impartial nature of God or merciful nature of God, or indirectly saying that God doesn't know how to rule. He doesn't know how to rule. Like, for example, if someone has organized an event And you don't go and tell that person that you have done a poor administration job. But whomever you meet in the event, you tell that person, who has organized this event? So many things are, going haywire. It's not properly done. This is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong, that is wrong. If you're just going around and complaining about it, indirectly you're questioning the organizer's ability to organize well, right? You may not take that person's name, you may not blame that person, but just because you're complaining, it means that indirectly you are saying that person doesn't know how to do his job or her job, isn't it? Similarly, one may not, very boldly and bluntly declare that God is wrong, God is not merciful, God is not kind. One may not do that very bluntly, but even the small complaints against what we see in the nature happening is basically coming out from that kind of understanding that God is not kind, is not merciful, right? So here, when we start meditating on this understanding that God cannot be so, he has to be impartial, he is equal, he is kind to all, he is merciful, he is just, he doesn't give punishment to people who are not supposed to get punishment. He knows very well how to take care of the things going on in the world. Then one begins to, because of that appreciation, one begins to evolve in one's consciousness. One begins to become more pure and pure and pure and pure. And purity in consciousness makes one qualified to understand higher levels of reality. Not simply intellectual, manipulation of the information will help us to understand reality. No, purity of consciousness will allow us to enter into those levels of reality. Otherwise, our senses, our mind, our intelligence do not have the capacity to understand the subject matter. Only when it goes through an upgradation because of purity in consciousness, it can understand. Like, for example, if there is a tool to hold onto an object, then there is a capacity of that tool. It cannot hold an object more than 10 kilograms. Now, if you try to hold an object of 20 kilograms with that tool will not be able to do the job. Similarly, at present, because of our particular level of consciousness, we can only understand any subject matter to a certain extent. We cannot understand beyond that because our senses, our mind, our intelligence do not function in that region. They don't have the capacity. But one becomes purified in consciousness, then those regions become accessible. One becomes qualified to enter there, right? And how does that purification happen? That happens by developing more and more appreciation for the Supreme Lord. Then one's consciousness becomes uncovered, right? The consciousness is already clear. The consciousness has been made dirty or has been covered over because of not having genuine appreciation for the Supreme Lord. So when I start having genuine appreciation over the Supreme Lord, the consciousness will automatically become clear again. And that is explained in this section 5.17 to 29. Okay, so let's see the next verse, 5.17. Tad buddhayastad atmanastannishtastat parayanaha gacchanti apunar avrittim jnana nirdhuta kalmashaha. When one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings through complete knowledge, and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. And then what is the vision of such a person? Vidya vinaya sampanne brahmane gavihastini shuni chaiva shapakecha pandita samadarshinaha. Very nice shloka. The humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, see with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast. Sees with equal vision. Okay. Dr. Vinod Prabhu, can you please read? Keshav Balram Prabhu, would you like to read? Okay. Navanidhi Mataji, please read.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
A Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. The Brahmana and outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, and an elephant may be different from the point of view of species, but these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. For the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. So, could you please scroll up? Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana. Although the body of a Brahmana and that of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and supersoul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. The similarity in the quality of the soul and supersoul, however, does not make them equal in quantity, for the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. The similar characteristic of the soul and supersoul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all the bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So now one who has developed this knowledge is able to see that the super soul exists in all the living entities' bodies. And because of that, one doesn't see the differences on material, on spiritual platform. Understanding that the soul is same, the super soul is same, just the body is different. And why the body is different? Because of that living entity's different karma. Past karma has produced a certain kind of body. So because of that, someone is dark in complexion, someone is fair in complexion, someone is born in one country, someone is born in another country, someone is in a male body, someone is in a female body, someone is not so intelligent, materially speaking, someone is very sharp and intelligent, right? Someone is very skillful, someone is not so skillful, someone has a short age, someone has a long age. All those material qualities or attributes are because of past life karma. And a learned person is able to see that. A learned person is able to see that. Krishna gives an understanding here through which he covers all kinds of entities actually. Same species, different species. Like in same species, talk of human beings. So he takes the highest category of human beings, which is Brahmanas. And then he takes the lowest category of human beings, dog eaters or outcast, 𝗄𝗶𝗹𝗹, uncivilized people who eat the flesh of dog. So Brahmana is in goodness, very high levels of goodness. And 𝗄𝗶𝗹𝗹 or a dog eater is in very low levels of ignorance, very, very, poor consciousness. And a learned sage is able to see both of them equally on spiritual platform. Talking about different species, cow is an animal in goodness, elephant is an animal in passion, dog is an animal in ignorance. So that person is also able to see all different kinds of living entities, animals, birds, plants, different bodies, but spirit soul is same. And the spirit soul has accepted a particular kind of body because of one's past actions. That is what the person is able to see. So here we have a lesson to learn. Equal vision means equal treatment on spiritual platform. I think we did discuss this before, that equal vision does not mean equal treatment on material platform. That is not possible. Equal vision means equal treatment on spiritual platform. That's what that person is able to do. Okay. So here we have an exercise for you. Think about it. How does the formation of ISKCON and ISKCON's different purposes show equal vision of Srila Prabhupada? Okay. I hope the question is clear. How does formation of ISKCON and ISKCON's different purposes show equal vision of Srila Prabhupada? You can raise your hands and mention the points, or you put in the chat box, whichever you feel convenient and comfortable. Neha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, temples all over the planet were built by Srila Prabhupada.
Very good. Yes. So he did not just make temples in one country, one city. He made temples all over the planet. Yeah, very good point. Yes, Hanit Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. So in these temples, there are tons of different activities which are carried out, many programs which are carried out. So that caters to, different kinds of people doing different activities within these temples.
Okay, so you mean to say that there's a facility for all kinds of people to find engagement, yes, and they don't feel left out.
Yes.
Right? Whatever nature you have, you find an activity to connect with Krishna. Okay, fine. Yes, Arati Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Be it book distribution or distributing food or preaching, whatever be the program, it is done for all. I mean, it is common, and the purpose behind is to bring everyone closer to Krishna. So
okay.
That shows it, yeah.
Okay, fine. Thank you. All are given opportunities to connect to Krishna. Guru Mayur Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. ISKCON welcomes all the people from different religions without any background. They are all welcome. And even he does not have categorized even male or female. Even the female also devotees also, he took the disciples also. So that kind of discrimination is not there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Anju Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Without any racial discrimination, like the gurus, the Diksha gurus and all, it's not restricted to only the caste Brahmins like that. So the Brahminical initiation is given to everyone, those who are capable and those who are according to their capacity. And it is taught here that we are not supposed to look up to the gurus based on their identification of the body, but based on the how you are attracted to the person. So that's a really fascinating thing in ISKCON.
Okay, thank you. So it's also not made compulsory in ISKCON or mandatory that you're supposed to be born in a Brahmin family, then only you can hold positions of responsibilities in ISKCON. No, you can come from any background, and if you're qualified, you are sincere, then you can be upgraded to very big responsibilities, roles and responsibilities within the society, right? So that is encouraged. Yes, Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam. What I observed is there is a lot of uniformity in the different programs of all the temples globally. Because if I find there is Mangala Aarti, I've heard and I've seen also that maybe if I'm connected with other temples also, it's all over the country. It's 4:30, nothing beyond that, nothing less than that. And if there is Tulsi Aarti, the chanting time, everything, even the programs also, if there is celebration of Janmashtami, so it will be observed globally. So that's what I like about SCON.
All right.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you. So yes, and many points came in the chat box also, all of them very correct, that Goshalas were made, books in all languages, correct, Rath Yatra in all countries, anyone can join ISKCON, food for all, then men and women both accepted, same Maha Mantra for everyone, not that for Indians one mantra, Americans another mantra, right, same mantra for all, right, deed is also same, correct, and then Brahman initiation, correct. All right, so many points, irrespective of, okay, ISKCON accepts you whether you were earlier practicing or following 4 regulative principles or not, still you are accepted, correct. All right, so so many more points can be added, speaking about his equal vision. And this thing, it may appear that, well, what's so big about it, having equal vision. Nowadays, everyone has equal vision. Even big corporations, they also have equal vision, in the sense they have their branches all over the world. Let's take the example of some bank, ICICI Bank or HDFC Bank. HDFC Bank must be having branches all over the world. They're providing services to everyone, whether you're Christian, Hindu, or Muslim. They don't say, okay, you're a Muslim, you cannot open an account here. They don't do that, right? Correct. So even on material platform, people are having equal vision. Material platform also, people are having equal vision. So how is his equal vision different from their equal vision? You see, companies, they also don't ask you, we are from a particular country, religion, this, that, before they take you as an employee. So how is his equal vision different from their equal vision? Or how is a spiritualist equal vision different from a materialistic person's equal vision? Ashok Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. There is difference first when the banks or the corporations, they open the branches, their charges are different. Depending upon the country, their services are different. So technically, they are not equal, number one. Number two, the motive of Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON is to elevate the life of the people across the world. Again, he is the same. Spiritual life for all the people throughout the world, elevation of their spiritual life. Here, the corporation's material vision is profit. Where the profit is less, they will close down also the branches. They will close down the offices also. Prabhupada will never do like that. In one country, people are not progressing, that let me close this temple. No, he will try more to elevate the people in that country. So from this way, Prabhupada's vision is much, much better and spiritual than the material form of the corporations.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
When you hear those arguments, don't you feel so convinced this person is talking so much sense? You know why? He works in a bank. So he knows how banks function. He works in a bank, so he knows how banks function. So brilliant points that if bank is not making profit, they'll close down the center. But Srila Prabhupada would never be happy if an ISKCON temple is closed down because of not having sufficient donations or people are not really becoming serious. Yeah, he will not be very happy. Yesterday, I was taking class for students in West Africa, Bhaktivinoda. So one devotee joined before others joined, and I was just chit-chatting with that devotee. So I asked that devotee, where do you stay in which temple and how many people come to the program? So that devotee is the temple president of the temple there. And he told me that on Sunday feast programs, the maximum crowd they get is 15 people, 15. That is Sunday feast. So now you can imagine on other days, on the weekdays, how many people might be coming to the temple. And then I asked, How many people visited the temple on Janmashtami? Said 60 people. 60. That was the number of people who visited on Janmashtami. But though the attendance is so low, the temple is still going on. Materially speaking, it must not be making any profit as such, right? Correct. But still the temple is going on. So that shows equal vision on a different level. But other organizations, they will not have equal practice of equal vision on this level. And second point, someone mentioned that the organizations or the corporations, they want to grow themselves. That's why they are like this. But that's not how with Srila Prabhupada's vision. One more important point is that, you see, Srila Prabhupada is not talking about equal vision in the sense that you stay where you are and we are not bothered about it, isn't it? Only the intake has no discrimination, but everyone is supposed to make progress. That is required, isn't it? Only for intake, there is no discrimination. But when it comes to, let's say, become a perfect devotee or an ideal devotee, then whether you started from a very low level or you started from a very high level, the destination or the level where you have to reach is the same, isn't it? So it's not that he is, going to keep people the way they are. At the end, he wants to take them to the same destination, same goal, which is different from other organizations, right? Okay, David, will we have something to say? Unmute yourself, brother.
Hare Krishna, Grace. What I want to say is that Prabhupada is not, I can say he is the richest man in the world because he has house in the whole world, but he is never attached to them. And if you get closer to the devotees, you can see this from them because everybody is ready to give out anything to serve everybody, For instance, if you went to the class and the teacher, after the class, he will say that, thank you for giving me opportunity to serve you. Because what he's doing, he thinks he's not doing it for himself. So I think that is one of the qualities of ISKCON.
Yeah, thank you so much. So very good points. All of you mentioned wonderful points that how it is different from a materialistic equal vision, right? And at the same time, a materialistic may externally appear to be more equal-minded. Like, for example, they say anyone is allowed to join in any of the parties and stuff like that, isn't it? Materially speaking, they may say we have equal rights for all. But then when it comes to ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear that on material platform, there will be discrimination to some extent. You cannot go without it. It will be there because we have a certain kind of body, and that body comes with its limitations, right? So there is equal vision. At the same time, there is no sentimentalism that, okay, equal on all respects. No, there are differences and we accept those differences as well, isn't it? We do accept those differences. So it's not a pretense of equal-mindedness. There is genuine equal-mindedness. But in other initiatives, there can be a pretense of equal-mindedness, but actually it's not there. It's not there. Only there is a pretense. Okay, we'll give you a break for a few minutes. See you after that.
Hare
Hare Krishna. Welcome back. So, how do the different transcendentalists attain this equal vision, or the status of equanimity is in this manner? Those who are Brahmavadis, whose goal is to merge in Brahman, they become situated in equanimity by seeing Brahman everywhere. Their understanding is everything has its source in Brahman, everything is Brahman, everything is situated in Brahman. How do Paramatmavadis see equally, or how are they equal in their vision? They see that whatever is happening in my life and whatever is happening in others' lives is because of our past karma, and this all is completely orchestrated by the Super Soul Paramatma. So they see the hand of Paramatma in everything. That's how they develop the equal vision. And how does a devotee or bhakta develop equal vision? A devotee or bhakta develops equal vision by seeing everything that he or she goes through in life as Krishna's kindness, Krishna's mercy. A good thing has happened, it is Krishna's mercy. A bad thing has happened, that is also Krishna's mercy. In this way, with every experience, there is increment in the sense of equanimity, that Krishna is kind, Krishna is merciful. So that equal vision develops because of that. So the different transcendentalists develop it differently. Next verse, verse 5.19. Ihevate jitah sargo yesham samye stitam manaha nirdosha hi samam brahma tasmad brahmani te stitaha. Those whose minds are established in sameness and equanimity have already conquered the conditions of birth and death. They are flawless like Brahman, and thus they are already situated in Brahman. Now, this quality of being sama, equal-minded, equal vision, is a common theme found in Gita in all the chapters. Basically, self-realization means to develop this vision. The more a person is self-realized, the more a person is endowed with this vision. Okay, so we will see who can read. Okay, Vishal Arora Prabhu, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, sure. Equanimity of mind, as mentioned above, is the sign of self-realization. Those who have actually attained to such a stage should be considered to have conquered material conditions, specifically birth and death. As long as one identifies with this body, he is considered as conditioned soul. But as soon as he elevated to the stage of equanimity through realization of self, he is liberated from conditioned life. In other words, he is no longer subject to take birth in the material world, but can enter into spiritual sky after his death. I lost it. After his death. Yeah, as long as one identifies with this body, he is considered as conditioned soul. But
You have already read that.
Yeah, yes.
It's here.
The Lord is flawless because he is without attraction or hatred. Similarly, when a living entity is without attraction or hatred, he also becomes flawless and eligible to enter into the spiritual sky. Such persons are to be considered already liberated, and their symptoms are described below.
Okay. Next verse. Na prahishyet priyam prapya no dvichet prapya cha priyam sthira buddhir asammulo brahmavid brahmani sthitaha. A person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who is self-intelligent, who is unbewildered, who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. So this is explanation of that kind of consciousness. A person who has equal vision sees even experiences with that vision. Means good experiences are treated the same as bad experiences. That's how that person sees, which means the equal vision is not conditional. It's not that I am equal in certain areas and in other areas I am not. Even when it comes to one's own life, that person has an equal vision, treating good days and bad days alike, good people, bad people alike. Can you please unmute yourself? Okay, next verse. Bahyasparsheshu asaktatma vindati atmani yat sukham sabrahma yoga yuktatma sukham akshayam ashnute. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. How a person is able to develop that kind of vision? Because that person is getting spiritual bliss, feeling of happiness inside. So I can give you a simple example to explain. If you don't like to visit a restaurant, then whether that restaurant has some good items in the menu or that restaurant has some not so good items in the menu, you will not bother enjoying either one of them because you don't visit that restaurant, right? Isn't it? So what is good in that restaurant or what is bad in that restaurant, you see both with equal vision, right? You have no interest in that. Similarly, one who has developed spiritual awakening, spiritual intelligence, and the taste for spiritual happiness, for that person in the material world, material happiness and material distress, both are same. They are like the two different kinds of preparations in the restaurant which you don't like to visit. Both material happiness and material distress. They are the same. Doesn't matter to him whether this is happiness or this is distress. Because that person is living on a different platform and is experiencing something different. So that person is not bothered about both of these kinds of experiences. But those who visit that restaurant, they are bothered about the good preparation and the bad preparation. You know, I want the good one, I don't want the bad one, right? But those who don't like to visit that restaurant, they hardly care. So here it is explained that those who have that, those who are in trance, enjoying the pleasure within, for them it doesn't matter whether it's material happiness or distress, right? Next verse. And why they take little interest in material happiness? Ye hi sangsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adiyantavanta kaunteya na te shuramate buddha. Very important verse. It says, Yehi sangsparsha ja bhoga. Sangsparsha. Sparsha means touch. So when the senses come in touch or contact with the sense objects, there is some kind of stimulation. Stimulation, right? Stimulation for the eyes, for the ears, for the tongue, for the skin, for the nose. There is some stimulation. Sangsparsha ja bhoga. And that stimulation, if it is as per our liking, we call it as happiness. And if it is not as per our liking, we call it as misery. Correct, isn't it? We call it as misery. Like, how many of you have gone through the experience of endoscopy? Anyone here? No, right? In endoscopy, okay, Rajat Prabhu, you have gone through that experience? Neha Mataji also? Would you like to share that experience? How do you feel when that pipe goes inside the stomach?
Initially, Prabhuji, they give us something sweet and which anesthetize your throat. and your once the tube goes inside, it's it's very hurtful.
You feel that pain, right? Or it's very unpleasant. You are not at all comfortable, correct, isn't it?
Yes.
But imagine a very nice preparation, which is your favorite, that goes down your throat. You like it so much, isn't it? But when that pipe goes down the throat with camera at the front, you don't like it at all, isn't it? And there are people who hold you down so that you don't jump and you don't scream and shout, right? And that pipe will go and it will come out. Very unpleasant experience. So that experience is born of some kind of contact of the senses with the sense objects. When there is a contact with what I like, I call it as happiness. And when there is a contact with what I don't like, then I call it distress. Correct? Same thing a person will be able to appreciate and another person will be able to not appreciate. Same thing, same food preparation, same experience, not able to appreciate. Now, behind that thin, layer of happiness or distress, there is something certain. What is that? Dukkha yonaya evate. There's a big chunk of misery. Big chunk of misery. Behind that little experience of happiness. And that happiness is called useless in one sense. Why? Adi antavantaha. That happiness begins and for a short while it exists and then it ends. Very short experience, isn't it? Like how many days you were, jumping around because someday you had a good meal. No, you have a good meal, maybe for half an hour or 1 hour, you'll talk about it, or maybe once in a while you'll talk about it. But not that every day you'll be jumping around that I had a good meal that day. It won't happen. So that experience is very short-lived, that pleasurable experience. It ends very soon, but it leaves behind a chain of ill consequences, materially speaking. Suffering is there. That's an intelligent person. Na teshu ramate. An intelligent person does not take pleasure in such experiences. So an intelligent person is convinced that this is not real happiness, right? Replacing sensuality with spirituality is the measure of spiritual success. Replacing sensuality with spirituality is the measure of spiritual success. That's what we learn here. Let's read the translation. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. Purport. Okay. Kevin Prabhu, would you like to read the purport?
Material sense pleasures are due to the contact of material senses, which are all temporary because the body itself is temporary. A liberated soul is not interested in anything which is temporary, knowing well the joys of transcendental pleasures. How can a liberated soul agree to enjoy false pleasure? In the Padma Purana, it is said, Ramante yogino nate sanyanade chit atmani iti rama padinsa param brahma vidyate. The mystics derive unlimited transcendental pleasures from the absolute truth, and therefore the supreme absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is also known as Rama. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, also 5.5.1, it is said, Nayam deho deha bhajam ne loke kastan kaman ahate vid ujum ye tapo divyam putraka yena tvam suddayat yasmad brahma 𝗪𝗵𝗹𝗹 anantam. My dear sons, there is no reason to labor very hard for sense pleasure while in this human form of life. Such pleasures are available to the stool eaters, hogs. Rather, you should undergo penances in this life by which your existence will be purified, and as a result, you will be able to enjoy unlimited transcendental bliss. Therefore, those who are true yogis, are learned transcendentalists, are not attracted by sense pleasures, which are the causes of continuous material existence. The more one is addicted to material pleasures, the more he is entrapped by material miseries. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So we may see people who may, challenge. No, this is not true. I mean, life is meant to be happy, materially speaking. So we try to enjoy to the best of our capacity. So it is true that for some time they will think they are enjoying, but after that there will be a long period of so much of suffering, which the material body will give to them, the same material body. The material body will become full of disease, and then one will have to go through that pain. So it will happen. One may not be seeing it coming, but it is coming. Very soon it is coming, right? Let's take the example of Michael Jackson. What was wrong with his body? He was pretty good looking man, though he was black in color, had a black body, right? But he was quite handsome if you look at his photo, but then he went through that surgery, and after that he became just like a ghost, isn't it? Whatever beauty God gave him on the material platform, he lost that beauty also, and he became almost like a ghost, externally not looking so well. What changed? The singing ability was the same as before, just the external looks changed, and now he was looking much worse than before, isn't it? And because of all those different operations he went through, it had serious impact on his psyche, on his mind, right? And later on, he lived a miserable life, and he died also miserably. Correct, isn't it? So that happens for people who do not understand that material enjoyment. The more you strive for it, the more you're calling for danger. Next verse. Shaknoti haiva yah shodhum praka sharira vimokshanat kama krododbhavam vegam sa yuktaha sa sukhi naraha. Before giving up this present body, if one is able to tolerate the urges of the material senses and check the force of desire and anger, he is well situated and is happy in this world. So a person who is able to check the desires is happy. How will one check those desires? Two ways. If one is already very advanced, one will be able to check those desires by higher taste, because you're already enjoying something so nice. You don't want to go for petty enjoyments in life. And for that person who is a beginner, a practitioner, that person doesn't have the higher taste yet. So that person then has to restrain from sense enjoyment by intellectual understanding. That Gita says, Srimad Bhagavatam says, my gurus say, the Supreme Lord says, wise people say, don't waste your time in sense enjoyment. So I should not do it. That's only intellectual understanding. Having faith in these statements, one strives for that. That's lower level. Higher level, one already has a higher taste. But at lower level of practice, one refrains because of intellectual understanding or intellectual conviction. Yes, this is true, so I should refrain from it. What is explained in this purport, we'll be studying in depth in the book Nectar of Instruction, 𝗪𝗵𝗿𝗪. So we skip and we go to the next shloka, which I like so much. Yontaha sukho antaramas tathantara jyotirevayah sa yogi brahma nirvanam brahma bhuto dikachati. Antaha sukha antaha aramas tathantara jyotihi. One whose happiness is within, who is active and rejoices within, and whose aim is inward, is actually the perfect mystic. This verse is calling upon the readers of Bhagavad-gita to take a journey within. Go inside. Go inside yourself. You want happiness? Look for it inside. You want to rejoice, celebrate? Go inside. You want to seek knowledge and you want to attain the goal of perfection? Seek it inside. Make the journey within. That's what this verse is calling upon. What does this mean? It means that instead of letting our consciousness be distracted by objects around us, we try to withdraw in, and through our intellectual understanding of what knowledge we have received, through all the different satsanga programs we have attended, the books we have read, the personal contemplation we have done, through all of that, we withdraw our consciousness from material experiences and try to then focus that consciousness on the spiritual reality. You pull the consciousness inside, not let the consciousness go out, get distracted. Can give an example. If let's say you are supposed to catch a flight, you enter the airport, and then you are walking towards the, you have checked in, we have went through the security check, and now you're walking towards the boarding gate. And while you do that, you see there are so many shops around you. Shops selling chocolates, shops selling wine. People also are selling cars inside the airport, right? Furniture, so many things are being sold inside the airport, right? So if you let your mind be distracted by all those things, and within your mind you're shopping, so that is called consciousness, which is drawn outside, not inside, right? And let's say if you're walking through that area, even if your eyes are falling on objects, sounds are falling on your eardrums, you are able to smell things, but in your mind you're focused, and you don't allow those things to distract you. My goal is to reach the boarding gate, sit there, and maybe if I have extra time, chant Hare Krishna, read some books, think about my spiritual life or what's going on in my life, how can I make it better to become a better devotee. If one is going through such kind of thoughts, that means your consciousness is inside, not outside. I just gave a graphic example to explain. So this is called withdrawing the consciousness inside, not letting it get distracted by things around you. That person will be able to then ultimately find happiness inside. Okay, it's a very interesting purport, short but very sweet. Let's see who will read this one. Mahamantra Krishna Prabhu, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
Thank you, Prabhu. This is slok number, Prabhuji, 23rd?
Yes, 24th.
24th, Hari. I will read from my textbook.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Purport. Unless one is able to release happiness from within, how can one retire from the external engagements meant for driving superficial happiness? A liberated person enjoys happiness by factual experience. He can therefore sit silently at any place and enjoy the activities of life from within. Such a liberated person no longer desires external material happiness. This state is called Brahma Bhuta, attaining which one is assured of going back to Godhead, back to home. Hare Krishna.
So, you know, a person who is at that stage, even if that person is all alone, that person never experiences loneliness. And one who is not that consciousness, he may or she may be surrounded by thousands of people, but that person will experience loneliness. Right? Because that person is not connected. And the other person, though alone, is connected to the Supreme Lord. So no experience of loneliness, no fear. I am alone. This doesn't bother that person. But some people, they become frightened just with the idea that they have to be alone. They become so scared. How will life be if I'll be all alone? Right? How will I pass my day? How will I pass my time? But this kind of person is not disturbed. So what we learn here is the more one delays in getting the higher taste of bhakti, the more one accepts the slavery of one's wild senses, isn't it? So that's why for anyone who has developed little intelligence, one should not delay accepting the process of bhakti, and one should not delay the journey of making progress in bhakti. One should dive with complete, heart and eagerness that I want to be on this path and I want to succeed on this path. Next verse. Lavante brahma nirvanam rishayah shrina kalmashaha chinna dvaidaya tatmanaha sarva bhuta hite rataha. Now that person's another characteristics mentioned here. Those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and who are free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. So those people, they attain the goal of liberation. Next verse. Kama krodha vimuktanam yatinam yatachetasam abhito brahma nirvanam vartate viditatmanam. Those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. You see, here you'll find a word in the Sanskrit verse, yatina. Are you able to see in the second line the word yatina? The yati is another name of sannyasi. A sannyasi is called yati. Yati. So if you go to Vrindavan, and those of you have been to Vrindavan, when you do Govardhan Parikrama, so there comes a spot and an area called Jatipur. Heard this name? Jatipur. It is very close to the Gopal temple. Gopal temple is on the top of Govardhan hill, and below that there is an area called Jatipur. So in Vrindavan, they don't pronounce ya as ya, they pronounce it as ja. Not in Vrindavan, sorry. The Bengalis in Vrindavan, they don't pronounce ya as ya, they pronounce ya as ja. So instead of saying Yamuna, they will say Jamuna, right? Instead of saying Yati, they will say Jati. And instead of saying Yatipura, they will say Jatipura. So how that place got the name as Yatipura? Because Madhvendra Puri, he was living in that place and he was a sannyasi. So that place got the name Yatipura, a place where a sannyasi lives. So Yati word comes from the Sanskrit word Yatana. Yatana means to endeavor. Correct? So if you look at the meaning of the word itself, it doesn't mean inactivity. Endeavor. Yatan means endeavor. Yati means one who endeavors. So a sannyasi is called someone who endeavors. But that person doesn't endeavor in material realm. That person endeavors in spiritual realm. Isn't it? What does that person endeavor for? Endeavors for perfection in spiritual life. That's why Srila Prabhupada used to say, people think that those who are spiritualists, they are inactive people or lazy people. But actually, those who are spiritualists, they have more work to do compared to materialistic people. They are so much more active, so much more busy, right? Because they have material duties to fulfill and they also have spiritual duties to fulfill. So they are so much more busy, so much more active. They work harder actually than materialistic people. Okay, next verse. Sparshan. Okay, now in verse 26, the subject of attaining liberation through Nishkam Karma Yoga is completed. Krishna is speaking in 27 and 28 about another process of yoga, the Ashtanga Yoga process, which he explains briefly. He's going to elaborate that in chapter 6 as of now. He's not going to elaborate it, but he just touches upon that subject. Sparshan kritva bahirbhayans chakshushaivantare prabhoho pranapano samau kritva nasabhyantara charino yatendriya mano buddhir munir moksha parayanaha vikattecha bhayakrodo yah sada mukta eva saha. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated within the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence, the transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, free, and anger. One is always in this state is certainly liberated. So this is the process of Ashtanga Yoga. How do you attain liberation through Ashtanga Yoga? Explained in these two verses. Will be elaborated in next chapter. We are not reading the purport here. We'll discuss this again in next chapter. And the last verse for today. Bhoktaram yagya tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. This is a memorization verse also. You have to memorize it for exam. And I hope you are doing that task. Memorizing of shlokas. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifice and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Becomes very happy, fully happy. Shantim. One becomes peaceful and then one becomes happy. Why? Because one understands these 3 points. Which are those 3 points? Let's look at the colored edition of the Sanskrit shloka. First point is, by understanding Krishna is bhokta, enjoyer. He enjoys. In material life also, we have people who enjoy more than us. Like the boss of the company enjoys more than the other employees in the company. Right? So bhokta, he is the enjoyer. Why is he in the enjoy? If someone says, why should Krishna enjoy? Why not me? Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. He is the master, the proprietor of all that exists. So who should enjoy? Who is the owner of the property should enjoy. Correct? If it's my house, I am supposed to live in it and enjoy it because it's my property. So Krishna's property is everything, or everything is his property. So he should enjoy. But the point is, why I should be happy about this and why it will give me happiness, the third line. Though he enjoys, he shares his enjoyment. Suhridam sarvabhutana, because he's a well-wisher, a kind friend to all. And who is a kind friend? Who shares? Right? A friend will share, isn't it? If he gets a chocolate, he'll break it into 2 parts. You take half, I take half. Shares. Likewise, Krishna, he is the enjoyer of everything, but he shares. And because he shares, when I enjoy with him, I am happy. Now, someone may say, let me play Krishna's role. Let me become the supreme enjoyer and I'll share with everyone. Right? Let me play Krishna's role. In that way also, everyone will be happy. What's the problem with that? What is the problem with that? Let me take Krishna's role. I'll share very nicely and everyone will be happy. What's the problem with that proposal? I will exploit. Okay, very good. Yes, I may not be able to do that job well of sharing properly with everyone. But before that, there is something else. Forget about, exploiting. There's something else before that. What is that? I don't own everything. Correct. Let's say, but we transfer the ownership to you. Then what? I'm not the owner. If that ownership is transferred to us, Usha Mataji, only I will enjoy now.
We'll not be impartial.
Will not be impartial. Okay, fine. Anything else? I'm still a materialistic person. But then let's say you become a spiritualist. No, you don't. You are no longer a materialistic person. You are pure soul, no material, contaminations. Then what's the problem? Then I do the role of God. I play the role of God. How will I not be able to do justice to this job? Envy and desire will fall. How can the part become the whole? Okay, yes. How can the part become the whole? It will be limited. Fine. So, yes, Anju Mataji?
I won't be impartial because that would be I will be always interfering with the free will, because that which Lord doesn't do. Even if we are given this role, so we will try and put our hold over there, like it should be done in this way, it should be done in this way. That is
okay. But then you see, we may say so, but we are not talking about conditioned soul. We are talking about, let's say someone has become a pure liberated soul. Like take the example of Maharaj Yudhishthira. Maharaj Yudhishthira, when he was the king, people, they got the same experience as when Lord Ramchandra was the king. So in the Vedic civilization, they compared these two kingdoms, Ramarajya and Yudhishthira Rajya. They say both were equally nice, because just as Lord Ram was a good king, perfect king, Yudhishthira Maharaj was also perfect king. Now we are talking about Lord Ramchandra, who is the supreme Lord. We're talking about Maharaj Yudhishthira, who is not the supreme Lord, he is a devotee. But still Yudhishthira is able to make all the citizens very happy, what even Lord Ramchandra could also do. So if a devotee, an ordinary living entity, when becomes purified, is able to be equal, no partiality, no discrimination, kind to all, well-wisher of all, how can that living entity not play the job of God then? My constitutional position is to serve. I'm not Vibhu Atma, I'm Anu Atma. I don't have the capacity to play this role. Yes, my desires will grow to give more. Okay, so one point, just look at the first point itself. Bhoktaram, it says enjoyer, correct? Even if I am put in the role to enjoy, I'll not be able to enjoy like Krishna. And because I cannot enjoy like Krishna, I cannot share that enjoyment also. Isn't it? Because I myself don't know how to enjoy. How will I share that enjoyment with others? It is said that those people who like to eat, they also know how to cook. Because they know how to enjoy, so they know how to cook, right? But those who do not have any sense of taste, how will they cook? Well, you give them anything, they are okay with it. But those who have good sense of taste, means they know how to enjoy, they'll cook well. And they'll be able to also make others happy, correct? So in order to give enjoyment to others, you should also be expert at the art of enjoyment. And Krishna is expert at that. That's why his name is called Raso Vaisaha, the abode of all rasas, mellows of enjoyment. Only he can do that. He's master at that. And because he can enjoy supremely, he can also share that enjoyment with everyone. We cannot. We don't know how to enjoy. How will we share enjoyment? Right? We cannot, but Krishna can. Krishna can wonderfully. Like if, once I was thinking about it, it doesn't just need a big heart to give love. It also needs a big heart to receive love. Not everyone can receive love, right? Just like not everyone can give love, not everyone can receive love also. Because when you are at the receiver's end and you are receiving someone's love, don't think that that person will always do what pleases you. That person may also do something that doesn't please you, but you are as at the receiver's end, you have to still receive it with gratitude. And Krishna is someone like that, but we are not like that. We cannot play that role at all properly. Cannot. So that's why Krishna can do that. He only has that capacity and he can share with everyone. So then everyone becomes happy. This is the way people of this world can be happy, by putting Krishna in the center of everything. We'll stop here. Thank you very much. In this chapter, okay, quick glance at the whole chapter. Arjuna begins with the question, sannyasa or karma yoga. Karma yoga is as good as sannyas, but easier, Arjuna, so you should go for it. How Nishkam karma yoga is to be performed is explained next. Knowledge of three doers and liberation through meditation on super soul. Supreme bliss and inner peace is achieved at the end. So we'll stop here. Thank you so much. Only one more chapter to go before your exam. So please be ready, right? One more chapter means maybe 4 more classes, that's all. So 2 more weeks and then you have an exam. So if you have still not waken up, then you have 3 weeks. And there are 3 exams coming. Means 3 types of submissions are there: essays, shlokas, written exams. So please be prepared. Usha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Recently you had put up in the group regarding some sadhana chart. So don't have the clarity on that and when we have to begin.
On 1st of September.
1st of September. But try to download the app and I don't know how to go about doing it. So
it's very simple actually. If you're not able to make out how to use it, then you can do that task using an Excel sheet. In the Excel sheet, make a dates column, and then the first column can be waking up time, second column can be when did you complete your chanting, third column can be how many minutes did you read in that day, fourth column can be how many minutes you spend in hearing some pravachana, and fifth column can be how much time you dedicate to do some seva. That's how you make 5 columns. 1 column is date and 5 is columns. Start on 1st of September and then submit the PDF on the last date of the month. Like that, you do every month. Okay.
Okay.
So the app also helps you do the same. So if you can use the app, it's easy, not so difficult. If you can't, use Excel. Okay. And if you can't do that also, then write it down on a piece of paper and then at the end of the month, take a screenshot of the paper and then send the PDF.
Okay. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Prabhuji, in case that we do the aarti and everything at home and we don't attend the morning prayers like in the 4:30 one thing, so is it okay? Like
yeah, it's okay, no problem. Totally fine.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. It is said that we are not the doers, but now we have 3 doers, one of which is us. Please, can you explain? I explained this before, that you are not the only doer. That's why there are statements, you are not the doer, you're not the doer, you're not the doer. They mean to say that you are not the only doer, exclusively, only one person doing it. No, you are doing it with support of other factors, right? So I have doership, but I don't have complete doership. For that purpose, it is said. Sometimes to emphasize on a point, a certain way of expressing it is used. Because you want to emphasize on it, right? Like, let's say a person is very proud, and you want to humble that person, fine? You have the role to play and you are actually, you have the qualification also to do that, you want to make that person humble, then what will you tell that person? You are nothing. What do you think of yourself? Now, you don't literally mean that you are nothing, correct? Isn't it? When you say you are nothing, you don't literally mean. That person can say, what do you mean by I'm nothing? I'm a man, or I'm a woman, or I'm this, I'm that. How can you say I'm nothing? But it's a way of communicating, because you want to hit on a particular point. So you say you are nothing. In that way, you crush the false pride of that person. Correct. Likewise, the scriptures, when they say you are not the doer, it is only crushing our false pride. When I'm thinking it's all because of me, I was the only person responsible for it. But it doesn't mean that it is taking away all the doership from you. Of course, you are one of the doers. If you are not one of the doers, why there are scriptural statements? If you do this, you get this. If you don't do this, you get this. Why there are statements? Be a good person. Don't do bad. Follow this advice. Don't follow this advice. I have doership. So that's why such instructions are given to me, isn't it? So we need to understand the import behind the statement. Why such a statement is being made? Very important to understand the import. Some people, instead of understanding the import, they are always concerned about the literal meaning of the statement. They don't really go behind the actual intent of that statement. So they only try to play around the literal meaning of the statement, but don't want to go inside, because they are more happy to just understand things on theoretical platform. They are not at all interested or inclined towards applying in life. So that's why they're always hovering on that platform. What is the meaning of this? What is the meaning of that? But not going inside into application level. Okay, someone else had a hand up. Whose question? What is that? Okay, no more questions. Fine, then see you next week. We'll start with chapter 6. And request all the devotees who are passive participants in the classes, please make sure you participate actively in the classes. Today I took some names and you did not respond, which means you are not available in the class. One of you mentioned to me in the message that you are doing some morning puja, that's why you're not able to read. But if you don't respond, then from next time I'll remove you from the class and I'll mark you absent in the class, right? No cheating business with me. So, Kavita Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Can you please inform us about the app?
I'll put in the group for you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you had talked about, I mean, if somebody is experiencing higher taste, then he's not perturbed by the material distress or happiness. But sometimes, I mean, we may have experienced higher taste at times, but still we get drawn into this material thing. So constantly, even though there are some experiences, but still we get drawn. So how do we counter that?
Nice question. We have higher taste, but we don't have the highest taste, first of all.
Okay.
Second thing is that we have not become stable or steady in that higher taste. So there is a stage when you attain steadiness in higher taste, right? Now what you experience, technically it is called abhas. Abhas means it's a shadow of the real experience.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, the happiness that we experience in Krishna consciousness, the joy when we visit the temple and see the beautiful shringar of the Lord, or, you know, sometimes in the kirtan, you are really, really exuberant, so happy, chanting the names, right? You may have hair standing on end, or even there might be tears rolling down your cheeks that Krishna is so kind, Krishna's devotees are so nice, this is such a wonderful experience. But all that is called shadow of the real experience. It's not denied, it is experience, yes, but it is just the shadow. Abhas. Abhas means just a touch of it.
Okay.
No, it's just like you are standing on the seashore and you just touch the most extreme part of your leg with the water in the sea. That experience is different from diving into the sea, correct? Correct. You're just touching it. So that is called abhas. So what we have is only an abhas. We have not yet dived into the ocean of bliss. When that will happen, then there won't be any coming down to material consciousness. Okay, all right. So why this abhas or shadow experience is given to us? It's like an appetizer. You know, okay, you have this experience. Now you strive for more. You know, because you have that experience and you know this is so nice. I want it again. I want it again. So then you put more efforts. So your desire is intense now. So that then that takes to your deeper level of spiritual bliss experience. In that way, one attains the final diving into the ocean of bliss. Okay, Madhuri.
Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna. Sonali Madhuri.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. In the sadhana application, you have provided 5 points, out of which the seva done in minutes I am unable to, get through because I have.
Seva can be like, okay, you have deities at home, you are serving them, or you are going to the temple and doing some seva, or you are doing some preaching activity. So any time and energy you are dedicating to Krishna, that's seva. Okay, so we are not talking about any job that you are doing. We are talking about specifically allotted time and energy for Krishna's pleasure. Something you are doing specifically for Krishna or for devotees. That's called seva.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
That's it. Okay. All right. So see you next week. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.